Hey everyone, welcome back to Love Wins, where the truth matters because it's the truth that sets us free. Before we get started today, I just want to remind you, and it's not a reminder because I've never said it before, but based on a lot of the comments I see on YouTube, I just want to say I gain nothing from doing this channel. I'm not paid to do it. I don't make money from it. I'm not asking you for anything. I'm not asking you for money, for commitment, for joining anything, for going into some backroom meeting. None of that. I'm not here for me. I'm here for you. So there are many opinions out there about the Bible and about Christianity, and I'm not claiming to be right about all the things I believe, but I am claiming that I'm not doing it for any ulterior motive. I have nothing to gain other than to help you gain in your own personal walk. I want you to be emotionally free. I want you to be shame-free. I want you to be guilt-free. I want you to be free. And the reason why I use the tagline, Love Wins, where the truth matters, because it's the truth that sets us free. It's because truth is the only thing that can set us free. We can ignore our shame and guilt, bury it, it'll come back. Until you understand, until you gain the knowledge of the truth that you need, you will never be free. Many years ago, I met a friend of a friend, and in the course of our conversation, she shared with me her own story. And her story went something like this. She was raised outside of religion. She got a summer job working at a Christian camp, and through those experiences decided to join this church. Then she got pregnant outside of marriage and left the church and said to me, basically, I don't go back because when I try and go back, I can feel people looking at me and judging me, etc. But as I listened to her story and the locations of where things happened and where she was now and the church that she was going to sometimes to try and come back, I realized the vast majority, if not all the people in that church that she was going back to once in a while wouldn't even know her story. Which means when she walked in and felt judgment from them, it objectively was not coming from them. How could they look at her and judge her when they didn't know? So the judgment was coming from within herself. And the act of going to church made her feel like I don't belong here because I'm not good enough to be here. And then she was thinking that feeling was coming from outside. It was actually coming from the inside. So if you remember back with Adam and Eve in the garden, there was no outside force. There was no church to attend or not attend. There was none of that. And when Adam and Eve went running and hiding, and God came and asked them why they were hiding, Adam said, because we were naked and we were ashamed and we hid ourselves. And the shame was coming from within them. So whoever you are, wherever you are, whether you've been to church and aren't going, whether you're going to church but not feeling good about it, whether you've never been to church but you still feel this angst between you and God and you're trying to figure it all out, the only antidote to all of that is truth. Who is God? What is He like? How does He feel about you? What is His plan? Where do you fit into it? Until you can answer those questions, until you know the truth of the answers to those questions, you'll never be free. And when society, some panic thing happens in society, some new catastrophe, something that causes you fear, a medical diagnosis from the doctor, when something happens that makes you face your own uncertainties and mortality, all of that shame and guilt and misunderstanding and confusion is going to well up and it's going to crush you. It doesn't need to. You can objectively be free by knowing the truth. And the truth is, there is a God. The truth is, we can know what He's like. And the truth is that when you find out who He is and you find out what He's like, the shame, the guilt, the confusion will be gone. The power that all of that has over you will be broken. That's what I want for you. That's why I'm here. That's why I do what I do. So there are other religious nuts out there who want to take your money and they want to lead you into this and get this from you and make you do these. I'm not here for that. I'm not here to tell you how to live. I'm here to tell you about the God who's worthy of your time and consideration. How that relationship with him plays out for you in your life, none of my business. I will not be policing that. I will not be trying to control that. In fact, control is one of the elements that is common in religion that has nothing to do with God. Let me break it down this way. Many people, well-meaning people, who become unbelievers, agnostic, atheist, they look at the world and the brokenness in it and they think if there's a God out there who's all-powerful and all-knowing and can do whatever he wants, then he must be a tyrant, because why doesn't he fix the world? But the piece they're missing in that equation is that the God who is out there made us free. And because he made us free, we are free to do good things. We are free to do not so good things. We are free to do evil things. In the end, God has a plan to bring it all back into harmony with himself for those who want that. But in the meantime, we're free. And the mess that this world is created by the outworkings of our own freedom. It's not God doing it. He's not doing it himself, and he's not making us do it. We're doing it. I can pass by the person in need and pretend I don't see them. Or I can stop and get involved in the messiness of their story and do what I can to help alleviate their trouble. God's not going to make me do one or the other. He's made me free to do what I choose to do with the opportunities and the circumstances that come my way. The last two videos, I've been talking about a sobering warning that Jesus gave. I'm going to read it again. It says, "These things I have spoken to you," and I'll back up and talk about what those things were. "These things I have spoken to you, that you should not be made to stumble." God doesn't want us to stumble. "They," and we'll talk about who they is, "will put you out of the synagogues. Yes, the time is coming that whoever kills you will think they are doing God a service. These things they will do to you because they have not known the Father nor me." Now, this whole sequence of teaching from Jesus that he's referring back to, "I've said these things to you because I don't want you to stumble." What things? All of these things that he has spoken in the previous two chapters began with one of his own disciples asking, "Jesus, before you leave," because he was saying he was leaving, "before you leave, show us the Father, and that will be good enough for us." That was Philip. And Jesus turns to Philip in chapter 14, first few verses, and he says, "I've been with you for so long, and you want to see the Father? If you've seen me, you've seen the Father." In other words, there was a misunderstanding in Philip. He thought Jesus is one person, God is someone different. And on one level, that's true. They are two different beings, but they're one. You will not find them disagreeing about anything. You will not find them having different opinions about anything. You will not find them feeling differently about us. They are one. If you ask Jesus a question, you get the same answer from God. If you ask God a question, you get the same answer from Jesus. Now, when you were a kid, you know that your mother and your father wasn't necessarily that way. You knew there were some things you could ask one that you'd get a different answer from the other. But Jesus was clear with Philip. If you've seen me, you've seen God. There is no difference. And then the rest of that chapter and the next chapter is Jesus talking about God, himself, and the helper who was coming, the Holy Spirit. He says we're all on the same team. We're all working for the same end. We're all here to help you. We all have part in the mission. We're all here to bring this to a good end. And then he says in chapter 16, these things I have said to you because I don't want you to stumble. That you should not be made to stumble. I don't want anyone. I want you to get in a place where nobody can move you, shake you, change you. I want you to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. Then he continues. They will put you out of the synagogues. Clearly they are religious people. Religious people with power and authority. The power and authority to put you out. So the controversy that's coming, it came then and it's coming again, it's boiling right now if you're not paying attention, comes from within. I can't tell you how many times growing up in the church, in religion, Christianity, that the idea was painted that the them was out there and the good people were in here. But then I read the book for myself and I found out that the them is in here. That the greatest enemy of God and his people is those who profess to be God's people. So Jesus said, they will put you out of the synagogues, out of the churches. Yes, the time is coming that whoever kills you will think that he offers God a service. These are religious people claiming to be working for God, thinking that they're working for God, killing people because they worship differently or don't see things the same. And then Jesus explains why it will happen. Verse 3, John chapter 16, verse 3. These things they will do to you because they have not known the Father and they have not known me. That's the cause. So the antidote to not being one of these people that puts people out and kills people is to know God and to know Jesus. Which is why I do what I do. It's why I so often encourage you on your own time, apart from me and any outside influence, to read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Because Jesus said, Philip, if you've seen me, you've seen God. You will not get a clearer picture of Jesus or God in Genesis or Exodus, or I read all of those. But you're not going to get a better picture of Jesus or God in those places. There is nowhere outside of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John where you will get a clearer picture of who God is. You will not even be able to read those other books and understand them for what they were intended for without first knowing who Jesus is. Jesus told the Jews, you search the scriptures, you read the book, and you think that by reading the book you're cracking some code to gain yourself eternal life. He said, but they testify of me. And you've rejected me. You don't even know me. So you've read the book, but you don't know what the story is. And you can grow up in church hearing preachers preach and teachers teach and parents guide and grandparents give their input. You can have all this Christian community around you, and because of all of this Christian input, you think that you know. But have you actually set that aside to pursue the person of Jesus, who is the truth? I am the way, the truth, and the life. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free, and you'll be free indeed. Have you taken the journey of actually pursuing Jesus? Hopefully you will find in that pursuit that there are lots of similarities between what your parents taught you and your grandparents taught you and your preachers and teachers taught you, between that and Jesus, hopefully. But the likelihood is you're going to find a lot of disparity. And you're going to find that the greatest enemies of Jesus were those who thought they were followers of God. When Jesus first told his disciples that he was going to die, which he never did until he was sure that they knew who he was. That's how vital it is to know him. Jesus is like, they cannot handle this information until they know who I am. Once he knew that they knew who he was, he went the next step and started to tell them why he was here. I'm going to die. And I'm not just going to die in a camel accident or a drowning. I'm going to be handed over by the teachers and the preachers and the rabbis and the rulers and the scribes who raised you and who teach you and who lead you. And they're going to hand me over to the Romans. And the Romans are going to cooperate with them because it's politically expedient for them to do so. Not because they have any understanding of what they're doing or why. And when the disciples tried to grasp what he was saying, two things prevented that information from sinking in. One is they never counted on Jesus dying at all. He was the Messiah. That was the first and biggest hurdle. And the second was, you're telling me not only are you going to die, but our people are going to do it to you? It was too much. It was too much. Now, last week I shared with my church a video on learning to ride a backwards bicycle. You can find the video on YouTube. It's Getting Smarter Every Day is the YouTube channel. And just look up backwards bicycle on that channel. So the guy's an engineer. He's brilliant, makes all kinds of cool videos with life application stuff. He was a welder where he works, made a backwards bicycle. So when you turn the handlebars one way, the wheel actually goes the opposite way. And he immediately thought, I can ride this. All I need to do is do everything backwards, I'll be fine. But he wasn't fine. He tried, and he couldn't. It took him 8 months of practicing at least 5 minutes every single day. 8 months. 5 minutes every single day, 8 months. It took his son, who was 5 or 6 years old at the time, you'll have to watch the video to get the details right, who had already been riding his bike, a normal bike, for a couple years. Took him 2 weeks. Took the father 8 months. Took the boy 2 weeks. But they eventually learned. The son quicker, the father longer. Then the father was traveling. He was in Amsterdam. And he said, I'm going to try and ride a normal bike. Because he'd been riding the backwards bike all this time. He couldn't. It took him 20 minutes of struggling to get back to being able to ride a normal bike. 8 months to unlearn riding a normal bike and relearn riding a backwards bike. 20 minutes to fall back into the pattern of riding a normal bike. You have been raised, and I have been raised, with a picture of the world, a picture of God, a picture of no God. Whatever your circumstances are, you were raised to see the world through the lenses of your parents and the people who influenced you the most around you from a child. You have that worldview. For your worldview to be changed significantly will take an enormous amount of effort. And your liability to slide back into your old patterns of thinking, much easier than learning a new pattern. It's why one of the wisest authors that I love the most, she wrote, we have many things to learn and many, many to unlearn. And when Jesus came to this world, he found a church that completely misrepresented God. And they were set in that pattern. They thought their wrongness was correctness. To the point that they were trying to correct Jesus into their mold instead of sacrificing their mold and following Jesus. What I'm saying to you is you will never have inner peace. You will never have joy. You will never get up in the morning knowing who you are and where you're going and able to make sense of this world. You will never be a person who stops stumbling until you know the truth. That's why Jesus said, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free, and you'll be free indeed. But there will be people around you who won't like your freedom. And they'll think they're doing God a service by beating you back into their way of thinking. And I'm telling you, there is a brand of Christianity that is taking over, bubbling beneath the surface, that reflects the warning Jesus gave here. And Revelation 13, which I've touched on a couple times in the last couple videos, describes a power, a beast power, a government, a nation, a Christian-looking nation, like a lamb, but speaks like a dragon, like Satan, who will force people to worship in a certain way. And anyone who refuses to submit to that way will be killed. It's sobering. But it doesn't have to be frightening. It's serious, but it doesn't have to make you stumble. You can be free by knowing Jesus. Because if you know Jesus, you've seen God. And you have the antidote to whatever Satan tries to do in this broken, twisted world as we use our freedom to cooperate with whatever side of the battle we choose to cooperate with. So again, let me remind you, I haven't asked you for anything. I'm not making anything off of you. I'm here to encourage you. I want you to be free. But you're not going to learn how to be free unless you make the effort to pursue the one who can make you free. You will know the truth. The truth will set you free. Read Matthew, read Mark, read Luke, read John, read them fast, read them slow, read them often. Until you find him. Until the reality of who he is sinks deep into you. He's not against you. He's for you. He will not multiply your shame. He will wipe your shame away. He will give you peace. He will give you joy that no one can take from you. We'll see you next time.